It was over 4 years ago, in July of 2020, when new regulations in Vermont regarding disposal of food scraps went into effect. The rules applied to both businesses, like restaurants and supermarkets, as well as private individuals and households. But measuring how much food waste has been pulled from the general trash and garbage that has to be disposed of in landfills, and Vermont has only one in Coventry, which is expected to max out its capacity in about 20 years, is another question. The more compostable food waste that can be separated from the general trash stream, the better. There's also an impact to be made on minimizing methane gas that seeps into the atmosphere and plays a part in global warming and climate change. Spoiled food makes up a very large percentage of material that goes to landfills or incinerators, where it releases methane gas into the atmosphere. Massachusetts has apparently set the gold standard for food waste composting, but Vermont is also right there in the game. To learn more about how we're progressing in this area, we turn to Emma Stuhl, an environmental analyst for the Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation. What is your assessment of how it's all going? Are we as a state collecting an adequate amount or percentage of the food scraps, or are we not hitting targets that might have been, hoped for by this point?
Yeah, the data is a little confusing. A lot has happened. A lot of good work is being done. We have a lot to be proud of, and there's still a lot more to do. There's still a big amount of food scraps ending up in our trash in Vermont. And one of the reasons that this law passed and that we can, some of us can find motivation. Well, there's lots of great reasons to keep food scraps out of the trash, but one of the big reasons is that when food scraps go to the landfill, there's not air because everything is compacted and pressed down. And so the decomposition that happens is mostly anaerobic, done without air, which produces methane. The bacteria that are doing that are producing methane, and methane's a really strong greenhouse gas. Versus if the food scraps are composted with air, then carbon dioxide is produced by the decomposers, and that's the same carbon dioxide that the plants and whatever, that the plants took out of the air and put into the plant material is going back out. So it's much better as a climate solution to keep those food scraps out of the trash. Yeah. There's lots of other great reasons to be motivated, making great soil for the garden, or just for doesn't have to be a garden, just for a lawn or for a forest, and for plants. And then, also when the haulers are picking up food scraps or compost facilities are composting those food scraps, that's supporting our green economy here in Vermont. And then just drawing more attention to food scraps in general can sometimes help people figure out what is getting wasted, and then can help them sort of have input to know what they might be able to waste, how they might be able to waste less, which can save people a lot of money also. Like a study a few years ago did an estimate and was estimating that a household of four was spending almost $1,500 on wasted food, like food that went bad or someone decided not to eat, or like more got trimmed off of the pepper than needed to. If you just cut the top off, like you miss a few pieces of pepper. That's an example. So so overall, to answer your question, we've done a lot of great work. I know a lot of people have worked really hard, and we've seen some results and payoff from that. And we have not a long way, but we have more work to do. Also, there's still a lot of food scraps ending up in the trash.
So then the main arguments for this are the carbon emissions piece, and also the fact that it would save space in landfills. The one.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yes, that's another big one, right? Like we only have one landfill in Vermont, in Coventry, and it's filling up more every day. And landfill space in the Northeast United States in general is really tight. And the whole solid waste industry is like, what do we do next? It's really hard to site a new landfill. People don't want a landfill right near where they live often. So what do we do? Do we ship it to somewhere else that has more landfills? Like that doesn't feel good either. That's like, so anyway, so yes, getting things out of the landfill that don't belong there, that are really resources that have higher and better uses, like our recyclables, which Vermont does a pretty good job on. But again, there's more to do to get recyclables out of the trash, and then getting food scraps out of trash, getting other materials that don't need to be in the landfill out can help that landfill space last longer. So we have a pretty extensive plan in Vermont that I think the new one is hopefully going to be finalized pretty soon, called the Materials Management Plan. It outlines what our agency is going to do over the next 5 years, and it also outlines what the local solid waste management entities, which are either like a district or a whole county or region, has teamed up to manage their solid waste obligations together. Or there's also some little groups of towns and some independent towns also that do it by themselves at the town level. So those local municipalities also have obligations for what they need to do every year. So this plan lays out over the next 5 years, this is what the agency is going to do at the statewide level, and then this is what the local entities need to do annually and over the 5 years. So a lot of what's laid out is doing more of what we're already doing because there's more to be done. For example, both the local municipalities and our agency do a lot of business outreach where we do quick waste check-ins with businesses and institutions to see what do they produce and what do they do with it and what information do they need. And if they happen to be out of compliance with something, our outreach team can, help make sure they understand that and make sure they have the info they need to get into compliance and make sure they get into compliance also. So there's a lot more of that to do. And then also both some of the local municipalities and then definitely our agency team responds to tips and complaints because we can't be everywhere. Even if we do like a lot of business outreach, still there's so many businesses and they change frequently, or staffing changes or management changes or ownership changes. So just people out across Vermont who notice something seems maybe not right can send us a tip and we can use that to focus our outreach and get our information to where it needs to go. So that's one example. But we do a lot of other things that are going to continue to be important and useful, like maintaining a statewide list of the food scrap hauling companies, and some of the local municipalities also have that information for their regions. We offer a compost operator training course and compost technical assistance. So if an existing compost facility wants to expand or has a problem to work through, we have support there. Or someone is thinking about becoming a compost facility or going to be a new staff person in a compost facility, they can get training and they can get technical assistance. Over the years, we have been able to provide some grants, and I can't predict the future whether that will happen again, but as there are needs, that's something our agency has been able to do some. Let's see, for the sort of like household and smaller scale level, we help, we fund the Vermont Master Composting course that UVM Extension has been offering for a long time. And so that's a sort of in-depth backyard composting class. And then some of the students from that class become volunteers in their community and do compost support, whether that's outreach and education or actually like helping make sure the composting happens at the community garden or at the school. So that's like a network of composting ambassadors. And we also help fund the Vermont Organics Recycling Summit as an annual conference, a one-day conference that brings together all the people working on this all across the state to learn and share info and get inspiration and think about what is next and more. Yeah, so I can point people towards the plan if they want to see all the details. But I guess all that is to say that, yeah, there's a lot more to do. And some of that is going to be doing more of what we've already done and then also responding to issues that come up. Or if there's opportunities where there's extra capacity, thinking about where can that capacity go, like when those grants have happened in the past. That was an opportunity where it's like, oh, there's some capacity to make an investment here. So what is the best use for that investment? And that did end up being grants to compost facilities at sometimes, or to transfer stations or to solid waste districts that are moving food scraps around.
Are we seeing a reduction in the amount of carbon emissions going up since 2020 as a result of bringing in the residential side of this?
Yeah, so the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, federal agency, has a tool that they update over time that takes the best research on how much methane is produced in a landfill when food scraps go into the landfill. So you can use this tool to say, well, if we landfill this food scraps versus if we compost this food scraps, what is the climate benefit, and how is that equivalent? How many cars is that equivalent to removing from the road, or how many houses would that heat? Something we can wrap our head around better. So yes, we definitely have used that tool in the past, and we can use that tool to say, we're making this difference. When we think sort of big picture, I think I alluded to this when I sent you some comments. When we look at the data, we do this big study every 5 years to say what is ending up in our trash here in Vermont. And what we get at the end is a pie chart that says this percent of your trash is this material, this percent of your trash is this material. And then we say, well, how much trash was there that year? And from that, you can say, well, we've had this much food scraps, we're estimating. So from the study in 2018 to the study in 2023, the percentage of food scraps was pretty similar, but there was less trash in 2023. So it actually is 13% less food scraps. So quite a bit less food scraps. But we don't know if there will be more trash next year. So, and if there was a lot of blood debris, like maybe that's a source of a lot of extra trash, but then we're not gonna have a different pie chart for 2024 to say, well, how is 2024's trash different from 2022's trash? So our data basically is just kind of rough. So I would say, yes, we have used those tools to say we're making this kind of difference, and we just haven't done that yet with our new study with these 2023 numbers. So I guess you're saying, oh, it's 2024. Why are you talking about 2023 numbers? So it was a year-long study, and then they had to do the final reporting, and then our annual data about what's going through all the facilities just takes like over a year to gather all the data and quality check it and to crunch it. So we always are talking a few years behind when we're looking at this big statewide data set.
More than half of Vermonters feel that Vermont residents are very informed or informed about the Vermont Universal Recycling Law, which banned food scraps and other organic waste that decomposes from being disposed of in regular trash and landfills. And most Vermonters think it's true that composting is good for the environment and that Vermonters should participate in composting. However, about 4 in 10 Vermonters don't feel composting is easy to do and feel that composting smells bad and attracts pests. A majority of those who rent their home or live in an apartment or duplex say they just don't have the space for composting. So we've made some progress here, but there's more to be had. For the GNAT-TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.